Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
This entire military is one cohesive, dedicated force. And the threats to our nations, they don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We've seen war. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Join Terry with Tracer Rounds every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern to hear interviews with veteran artists, veteran business owners, and businesses that support veterans. Catch us on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and MB Radio. If you miss a show, you can listen again on Reefs Across America Radio every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Tune in to see if you are on target. MBR, giving veterans a voice.
Welcome back to the Tracer Rounds podcast. I'm Terry, your host, and you're on Military Broadcast Radio, where we're giving veterans a voice. And tonight's voice is to Derrick Jackson. Welcome, Derrick.
Hey, Terry. Thank you very much for the invitation.
We're so excited to have you. So you're a veteran and you've served in the Air Force. Will you tell us a little bit about your military service, about some of the things maybe that you've done?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I did 21 years in the United States Air Force. Growing up, joining the military wasn't something that I thought I would do. In high school, I was kind of focusing on other things, probably some things that I shouldn't have been focused on. What's funny, though, I remember I was in the 11th grade, and they were offering the ASVAB, the test before you join the military. And I took it in the 11th grade just to get out of class. I had no aspirations of joining the military. I just didn't want to go to science class. And so I took the test, forgot all about it. And now it's towards the end of my senior year in high school. And some of my friends were going off to college. Some were getting jobs. Some were saying they were going in the Army. And my cousin and I were talking, and he said that he was going to follow his father and go in the Air Force. And, it took me about 10 seconds. And I said, you know what, me too. And so when I was 17 and I made a decision within 10 seconds that turned out, even till today, to be the best decision I ever made in my life.
That's awesome. So did you do reserves or anything, or was it active duty? So you waited till you graduated and then got in?
Right. So I graduated in June, and September I was going to Lackland Air Force Base for basic training. Initially, I enlisted as a jet engine mechanic. My first duty station was at Dover Air Force Base, working the jet engines for the C-5 Galaxy, the TF-39s. And thankfully, I was working in the back shop, and I didn't have to work on the flight line because it gets quite cold in Delaware in the wintertime.
Yes.
So we were, disassembling, inspecting, and reassembling the jet engines before they got shipped back out to the flight line. I did 4 years there, and then I was assigned to Hickam Air Force Base in Hawaii.
Wow.
Another funny story is I wasn't even trying to go to Hawaii. I was trying to go to Japan, but I saw that there was a opening, slot for Hickam. So I decided, well, it can't hurt if I put it on my dream sheet. Right. And about 3 months later, I get the call, hey, you're going to Hawaii. And I thought it was a practical joke.
I would have thought so too.
Right. And so I spent the next 4 years working on the flight line and at Hickam, C5s, C-141, C-17s, and a lot of the AMC transit aircraft that were coming through. And it was around this time I started thinking about my future. I enjoyed working on the airplanes. I didn't think it was something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I started really put some thought into, where my interests were. And then I realized I had an interest in federal law enforcement. And I guess initially my thought was federal law enforcement because I went to an FBI recruitment briefing on base. And, I liked a lot of things that they was telling me, but I had a 4-year commitment in Hawaii and I couldn't get out of it. And then I realized that an opportunity was looking me right in my face with the OSI, the Air Force Office of Special Investigations. And so I gave them a call, and they told me the same thing. You have to complete your 4 years in Hawaii before you can apply. So, I took advantage of those 4 years, went to school, started working towards my degree in criminal justice. After the 4 years were over, I went to Tyndall Air Force Base, and I was working the flight line for F-15 Eagles. When I got there, I called OSI again. Hey, I'm interested. And they said, well, you have to wait a year before you can apply. So altogether, it took me 5 years before I could even apply for OSI. So when that time came, I hesitated. I got nervous because I realized, I have been waiting on this for 5 years, and now that time is here. And what happens if I don't get in? So, my nerves kind of got the best of me for about 2 or 3 months. Then I finally talked myself into, driving across base and sitting down with one of the agents, to let them know that I was interested, and we began the process of the recruitment.
That is a long story to get to OSI. I mean, like that's a commitment, I would say, having to wait that long. I mean, if you still wanted to do it after that length of time, I mean, that really shows fortitude and, your forward path towards your goal, doing all the criminal justice and all the things to get ready for it. I think you were well prepared.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was it took a long time. And when I got there, I realized that I wasn't as prepared as I thought I was. It was a big change going from, wearing uniforms every day, coming home smelling like jet fuel and hydraulic fluid and, everything else that's on those airplanes.
Right.
Now I'm wearing suits to work every day. And so, a different mindset, what's wrong with this airplane? Is it safe to fly? To trying to track down, terrorists and solving sexual assaults and running undercover drug investigations. So it was a big shift for me, but it was exactly what I wanted.
Yeah. So how long did you do, did you work for OSI, and what type of, you said you had assignments with finding sexual assault cases, solving them and doing things like that. Did you do anything overseas, or was it all homeland type work?
Both.
Yeah.
Both. So initially when I joined OSI, like everyone else, you go to FLETC, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Georgia. Okay. Most federal agencies are doing their police academy training there, besides the FBI and DEA, who have their own academy. But it's the criminal investigator training program. For us, when I went, it was 6 days a week for 2 months. And as soon as you graduate that, the very next day, you started the Air Force Special Investigations Academy. So that was another 2 months of training. So now you know how to be a federal agent, but now we're going to teach you how to be an OSI agent. So after, I think, 5-6 months of training altogether, I got my first assignment. And like everyone else, your first 12 months in OSI, you're on probationary status. And that's your chance to prove that you have what it takes. So there, just like with any other job in the Air Force, there are core tasks that you have to be able to show that you are proficient at, whether it's collecting evidence, processing crime scenes, certain types of interviews, whether you're interviewing witnesses and people who are victims of crime, interrogations, getting some training in counterintelligence. And as I neared my first year, I was still on probation for another 2 months. And I got an assignment to Osan Air Base in South Korea. And that is where my life changed. And also that is the inspiration for the first book. So, excuse me, in South Korea, I was working criminal investigations. Unfortunately, we were working quite a few sexual assaults, not too many drug investigations, but you do get into some theft investigations. And of course, when you're overseas, there's going to be some counterintelligence work. So after my 12 months in South Korea, I joined a brand new team that was created, counterintelligence team that was created in support of the Air Force Special Operations Command. And so when I joined, I thought I was going to be spending the majority of my time in Afghanistan and Iraq. But turns out that AFSOC was requesting OSI assistance to go places where there was no large military presence. So we went just about every place besides Afghanistan and Iraq. Some places that you may not hear about on the news. And so our job was to embed as much as we could with the Special Operations Forces and figure out where they were going to go. We got some joint training with them, and then we would go to some contracted training. A lot of these courses were taught by former Navy SEALs or Army Rangers, teach you how to survive when you get downrange. And so once we, got through that initial cycle of training, we would work with the teams that we were supporting, figure out where they were going to go around the globe, and we would go in advance of those special operations missions, more of a threat detection mission for us to go out and determine what are the safest routes to travel, what are the safest hotels to stay in, and developing contacts at the embassy within a local law enforcement and local police. And then we bring that threat information back, share it with the deploying unit, and depending on what the threat level was, a lot of times we were asked to go with them during the actual mission so that when they're doing their thing, we're a couple layers back, trying to detect if anyone was actually watching them and, could see them as a potential threat. That was a really good assignment. In 4 years, I think I traveled to about 20 countries.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It is. There were times I would wake up and I couldn't remember what country I was in for a couple of seconds. Then it would kick back in and then, ready to go for the next mission.
Wow. Yeah, that would be hard to keep up if you're traveling often and you're waking up in a new hotel. It's like, where am I today?
Right.
For sure.
Right.
It really sounds interesting that you were really the forward element before the special operations unit went, that you were really finding out and kind of determining, like you said, the threat level and whatnot before they even got on ground. So you were really the first group in assessing everything and then coming back with the details. That's a pretty cool assignment, I would have to say.
Yeah, we enjoyed it. It was a little bit difficult at times to embed with those units because they have been operating for so long without, dedicated counterintelligence support. And so when they heard that, hey, OSI is going to be joining you, they're not thinking, counterintelligence OSI is here to keep you safe. They're thinking OSI is here to see if you're doing anything wrong or something that's going to get you in trouble. So, initially there was a lot of resistance from those units, for us to be involved with their deployments. But once they saw the products that we brought back and the threat information that we could share, then they started to open up and then request us to go along with them on these missions.
That says a lot if they're asking you to go along.
Yeah. It took a lot of hard work, but eventually we got there.
So you also were you were guarding or security detail for some dignitaries too?
Right. So after my assignment at Herbert Field, I heard through the grapevine that I was going to be coming to DC. And what I did not want to do is go to Andrews because that's the big squadron. And I wanted to stay away from that. So as much as I could, I kind of wanted to steer my own career. So made some phone calls and I was able to get on the PSD, the Protective Service Attachment. And, our mission was to protect foreign dignitaries visiting DC and anywhere they were traveling within the United States. I had already had that training because a lot of OSI agents get that training to protect dignitaries in whatever AOR they're visiting. So I got the assignment. I was there for about 3 months and I came to work one day and my boss said, hey, the squadron commander called and they want you to go to Andrews and be the superintendent of the fraud unit. And I had no experience running fraud investigations at all. This was major procurement fraud. And I had no experience at all. And so I thought about it. And because I was getting promoted, it looked like I didn't have an option anyway. So I went ahead and volunteered before I was voluntold. And a couple of days later, I was at Andrews. And that turned out to be probably the best assignment I ever had. I went into that and it was really challenging because, most of the agents who were working the fraud investigations had been working it for a few years. They knew what they were doing, and I had no clue what I was doing. And so, if I'm going to be in charge, I think I better get up to speed and learn how to conduct these investigations. And so it was a challenge for me. It took me about a year to learn everything, but after that, I think I earned their respect.
Well, that's awesome. But really, if you're a good leader, you're not the subject matter expert on everything. You've got good people around you. And so sometimes if you're in a room and you've got a group of people, you shouldn't really be able to pick up the leader. You all should be really strong in whatever thing you're trained in, so that
Right.
they can just pick on anybody and everyone's going to lead from the front with whatever skill set they have. So I think that's telling about you as a leader. You're still trying to learn, but you've got people that are experienced underneath you that really know the deal and can help train you. And then as you get your own experience, that's the way it should work, I think.
Right. No, I agree. I think we've all had good leaders and bad leaders, and I think the bad leaders are the ones who don't want to admit where they're not so strong.
Right.
And they try to cover for it by focusing on certain areas, but it's quite obvious where their weak spots are. But I think that the best leaders are the ones who can accept, hey, I need to be better in certain areas, and then they work to improve themselves.
Exactly. I agree with you 100%. That is the way it is, because you shouldn't be threatened by somebody just because they know something you don't know.
Right.
It's that those people can teach you and give you more information than you had before. So a good leader understands that, everyone's there to learn at some point in time in their career. There's always something to be learned.
Right. Right.
Definitely. So you took all this experience with all these different missions that you did and with all these different people, and you decided to do what with that information? Well, I mean, in a fictional sense, of course.
Yeah. So I was never the person who dreamed of becoming a writer. I never thought I would write a book. So when I retired from the Air Force, I took a job in corporate investigations with a pharmaceutical company in North Carolina. Really good company, really good job, a lot of good people that I work with. But I had a lot more free time than I had when I was in OSI. And so I was trying to figure out, what am I going to do with all this free time? Initially, I started painting out of nowhere. Not even sure what I had a conversation with before. And one of my closest friends that I was partners with in South Korea, he and I would always talk about some of the cases that we conducted. And just thinking back when we were at Osan, thinking that, hey, one day someone's going to write a book about this, because people will not believe the crazy stuff that we're dealing with every day. And I didn't think that person would be me. I thought it would be someone else, and I would be laughing at their book. But fast forward a few years, I'm sitting here thinking, I've got to find a way to fill all this free time. And the thought just kept building in my mind, you should write this story. And so initially, I kind of wrote it in a screenplay format, just to get my thoughts down. Yeah. And what I wrote initially actually became the second book that is about to come out. And so I shared it with a few people, and they told me, you have a really good story, but I realized that I couldn't start the story here. Something was missing. So I had to go back and write the beginning part of that. And then the beginning part of that story turned into the first book that came out in November 2024, which is Shadow One.
Shadow One. So can you tell us a little bit about the story and about the character? I mean, don't give away anything so that people will actually read the book and and enjoy it from that standpoint, because we don't want any giving away the ending or anything like that. But can you just tell us how you decided we're going to write about, and then how you developed the characters around? Because obviously they're fictional characters, but some of the scenarios are maybe have some semblance of things that actually happened.
Sure. And you're absolutely right. So the first book, Shadow One, is about 60 to 65% true in some way or fashion. Some of it, the way I wrote it happened. I mean, I wrote it the same way it happened. Some of it I changed around a little bit to kind of mix the investigative work up. Of course, I changed the names, and then, the rest of it is fiction so that I could tell a good story. The main character is Devin Jackson. Very close to my name. You can probably imagine where I got the inspiration from. But yeah, it is about the first 2 years of my career in OSI. It is a fictional story, but again, a lot of it actually did happen. And it begins with a person who has an opportunity to follow his dreams and become a federal agent. But early on in the story, he has to make a decision. Does he follow his dreams, or does he stay with the person that he thinks he's going to spend the rest of his life with? And being that the second book is going to come out, I guess you can imagine what his decision was. But that decision that he makes early on in the first book follows him throughout the series. And so he's a person who is not the biggest, he's not the fastest, but he's working hard. And no matter how hard he works, he's constantly making mistakes. And initially, he doesn't have a support system to train him along the way. He doesn't have anyone to grab him by the collar and say, this is how it should be done. Follow me, I will show you. He's just struggling. And no matter how many hours he works, how many investigations he takes on, the mistakes continue. And then he PCSs to Osan Air Base. And finally, he ends up with a group of agents who are willing to take him under their wing. And at this point, he's still making mistakes. And he and his partner, Al Sparks, find themselves out on the base, just introducing themselves to people, trying to make contact so that people will feel comfortable coming to talk to them as law enforcement. They didn't know who they were meeting, but the people that they were meeting were actually the bad guys in the story. They inadvertently ran upon some guys who were involved with a drug trafficking and human trafficking ring. They didn't know the bad guys, but the bad guys definitely knew them. And so within the story, the hunters become the hunted. And Devin, after losing someone close to him, kind of has to find the strength to keep fighting, and then has to make a decision. Is this really what I want to do? Because ever since the day I picked up this gold badge with these numbers at the bottom of it, my life has gone to crap. And so it was a decision that he made early on that he wanted. And he's at a crossroads in the story. Do I want to continue doing this after he suffers that initial loss?
Oh, wow. So do you, so you write mostly suspense and the technical aspects of I don't know if I want to call it detective work. I don't think I would call it that. Investigation work. Yeah. And does it enter into any romance, or do you have I read about cultural differences between, and that may be coming in the new book, between African Americans and Africans, because the other one is set, the stage is set overseas. And so how do you write about those differences or the impacts of one on the other? Is there a certain way you address those types of things?
Absolutely. So I guess to start your question, you mentioned the romance. Yes. So yes, the book is absolutely suspense, it's action. It's got some criminal investigative procedure, but I was trying to be careful not to make it a procedural book. But I wanted to write it in such a way that people understood that, this was the life I live. I know what I'm talking about, but I didn't want to write in such a way that it became boring. And the first book, as much as it is a thriller, it's also a romance, because I mentioned earlier that he has to make this decision. Does he follow his dreams, to be a federal agent, or does he stay with the love of his life? And he makes that decision, but that person is always there, one way or another. Good or bad, that person just continues to show up. And he doesn't always treat that person the best, but the relationship that they have continues throughout the series. And so in the second book, there is a bit of romance with a different person, but because of the tragedy that Devin experiences in the first book, he has to make a decision: is he ready to move on? And so even though he's not looking, there's someone that that catches his eye, and he feels guilty about kind of moving forward, but not sure if he wants to move forward or not. And the other part of the story that's really interesting, with all the counterintelligence work that's going on in the second book, there's a cultural discussion about the relationship between Africans and African Americans. So within our community, there's a lot of back and forth about how African immigrants come to the United States, and a lot of them are very well educated. Some of them are doctors and lawyers, highly paid professionals, and how they view us, because some of them, not all, some of them kind of look at African Americans as though, well, why aren't you at the level that I am? I came here from this country in Africa, and I'm this educated, and I'm making this much money, and I live in this big fancy house, and you've been in America, for generations. Why aren't you at the level that I am? And so there's a feeling that sometimes they look down on us. And then we have to look at it the other way. How do they think we look at them? Do they think that we're mocking them, even though they come from the same place that our ancestors come from? And so, within the story of trying to find a downed airman in Africa, our main character, Devin, is involved in this discussion as he's trying to convince local Africans to assist him in the rescue and recovery.
Oh, wow. I'm interested to read more. And so the Raven Shadow is the new book, and it comes out Friday, March 27th. And where do people find that?
You can find the book on Amazon. The audio book should be done by then, as well as it post-production right now. Or you can find it on my website at derrickmjackson.com.
Nice. So I know I ordered my copy of the book, but it doesn't get here till Saturday, so I can't read it yet, but I'm so excited to read it because I love a thriller and I love investigative books, and I love trying to follow the story and figure out who did what and how it's going to end. I don't think I ever guess right.
That's fine. That's fun and just guessing.
So how did you start writing? I mean, like, did you take a class? Like, what was your inspiration? I know you said that somebody needs to write this story, but how did you begin that? Because writing a story is not an easy task. I mean, it really takes a lot of effort, a lot of forethought, a lot of trying to tell the story visually. People are reading it, but you're wanting them to get a visual picture of what you're writing about. So how do you paint that picture for people to really see what's going on in the story and really see your characters? Did you take a class in college? Did you get a mentor? How did that work for you?
That's a really good question. For me, it was difficult because I was trying to decide how much of the real situation was I going to put in the book. And then I had to ask the question, how much of the real situation was I allowed to put in the book? Because, when I was finished writing it, even before I could send it to the editor, I had to send it to the Department of Defense for them to review it and then give me approval before I could even, send it to the editor. So, especially the first and second book, there's a lot of criminal investigation and counterintelligence work. I want to put some specifics in there, but I have to be careful about what I write. Obviously, I changed the names and changed some of the investigations around. One of the most difficult parts of writing it was writing a character that was based off of myself. It's not me. I'm not writing an autobiography, but I am writing, about a character who has similar things happen to him as I had in my life. And I didn't want to present myself in a certain way. I didn't want this to be a Jason Bourne or 007 book, where this guy is just, supernatural and makes no mistakes. I did the exact opposite. I wrote about a guy who loses all of his energy, and everything he does seems to be the wrong thing, no matter how hard he tries. And I just wanted to write more of an inspirational story for people who are going through something, even when the times get tough, that they can just, keep punching, kind of like a Rocky story, and just make your way to the end, even if you're not on top, but you finish the race. And so for me, I didn't have any specific training. I kind of initially pulled back upon my experience writing reports of investigation, where you have to tell, this happened, how this happened, this person did this. Here's how I figured it out. These are the steps that I took. This is what the evidence showed. And I've written, counterintelligence reports, criminal investigative reports, corporate investigative reports, and a mixture of all those things plus my own writing style is what became Shadow One. I guess the most difficult day was the first day, sitting in front of the computer. I'm looking at a blank Word document, and the cursor is blinking and it's staring at me. And I'm thinking I've got a few hundred pages to write, and I can't even write the first sentence. But once I got the courage to start and I got past the first page, it became probably one of the most rewarding experiences in my life. I had no idea how relaxing, writing could be.
That's an interesting take, relaxing. I'm not sure I would say writing a novel or a story is relaxing. I think I'd be stressed out, like, okay, well, how do I make this connection? How do I make sure that I've
Yeah.
crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's and all the storylines work together? Because you watch a show sometimes and you're like, hey, wait a minute, they weren't doing that in the last one, but yet, you want to make sure that you've connected all the dots for the audience and that you're not writing something that didn't happen or whatever, like you're
Right.
not putting embellishing something in one episode and then walking it back in another one. So that's stressful, trying to make sure that all the storylines
Yeah.
go follow the right avenue and keep their integrity, basically.
Mhm. Well, I guess for me, it was similar, but it's a little different because I did find it relaxing. A lesson that I learned, writing the first book is, even though I had the outline, I knew what happened in this scene at the beginning of it and what I wanted the end of it to be. How do
Yeah.
I get the middle filled out? And the lesson I learned was don't force it. If it's a really important scene, don't force it. Take your time. And I
Yeah.
was just started walking around my house, walking down the street, listening to music. And I wasn't, looking for any specific song, but a certain song would come on, and it would happen every single time. A certain song would come on that would remind me of a scene that I needed to write. It may not even be the scene that I'm thinking about. It could be, a couple of chapters later, but that music would remind me of that scene. And I would just keep listening to that song over and over and over. And I could kind of see it play out like a music video. And
Oh,
so
wow.
that was my inspiration for writing, several scenes in both of those books. And a lot of times, even though I thought I knew what the scene was going to end up like, when I heard the music, I would go back and change it. And that allowed me to put even more emotion into those scenes because it was the emotion that I was feeling as I was listening to that music.
That's interesting that music was what spurred your thought process on your story. I
Mhm.
mean, because music, I mean, it fuels the soul. Like you said, I feel like, it jazzes you up or it might mellow you out. It depends on what you're listening to. But I find it very interesting that gets you in the creative mind space to write, because then you're thinking about your juices are flowing. Your mental juices are flowing about how a storyline could go, and then you're able to write it. So do you find yourself in the middle of the night going, oh, I need to like write something about this, or I want this ending to go this way, I need to hurry and jot this down before I forget it?
All the time, all the time. When I'm driving, laying in bed at night, sometimes, I wake up thinking I'm just going to turn over and go back to sleep. And my mind starts wondering about, the scene that I'm trying to write. And it hits me. And sometimes I have to get up and go type it. A story I could share with you. For the second book, I thought I knew what the ending of the book was going to be like. I hadn't written it yet. I had it in the outline, but I hadn't written it in the book. But I knew what it was going to be. And so I woke up one Saturday morning and I came downstairs to clean the kitchen. And I turned on some music and I heard a song that I had never heard before. And the person singing this song, and I cannot remember the name of the song, but I can find it. He wasn't the original artist. He was doing a cover of this song.
Mhm.
And he put so much emotion into that song that I couldn't stop listening to it. And 2 hours later, I was finishing my book
Wow.
according to the emotion that I felt from that song, and the ending was completely different than what I imagined it
Oh, wow.
to be.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, um, I know that when I've talked to people that write music, they always use a voice recorder and they hurry and like if some lyrics come into their mind, they hurry and record it just so they don't lose it. Like if they're in the shower and they're taking a shower and they're like, oh, some lyrics come, they hurry and jump out and grab their phone and do their video voice notes. Not video, but well, I mean it could be, but voice notes in the phone just to keep those thoughts and those creative juices flowing. So
Mhm.
you said you hear music and then you start writing. So do, do you, is there any other creative way that you get in that mindset to write? Like, do you like have to have a particular setting at home? You said like middle of the night it hits you, but what's your what's your go-to when you're writing? Is it just you in front of a computer, or you got the music going, or you got
Right.
something else going on that really puts you in that mindset?
Yeah, when I have a particular scene that I want to write and I have found the right music, it's just me, my laptop, and that song on repeat. And sometimes it's on repeat for hours. But if
Wow.
I'm just writing and I'm creating, the music may be playing, or it just may be me sitting at my desk, laughing at my own jokes that I think are funny. And if there's anyone else in the house, they might think I'm a little bit crazy because I'm laughing at myself. But for me, that's where the relaxation comes at. It's me being able to write in a way that I want to write, to tell the
Yeah.
stories that I want to tell, and hopefully people will read it and enjoy it.
Yeah, and so far I was reading the story, and I'm already invested. I know that they've already like taken the person to a place to start their investigation, or start not necessarily investigation, but they start like talking to him and telling him what they need from him. And so I'm already anxious to. I'm not trying to give anything away,
No, it's fine.
so I'm already invested. I'm already ready to read some more tonight.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you something. Oh, so I now it makes sense to me why you're good at writing, because like you said, you were writing reports, and so those are in narrative, and you're explaining what happened so somebody else can get a visual picture
Right.
of the incident and the characters involved, and the situation in general. So you're summing it up for somebody that's not been there, not done that, so that when it's going before a jury or something like that, that then they can see the picture or hear the story. I mean, because they're creating their own mental pictures by what you write. So that makes sense now. I didn't really take it from that perspective, that would make it easier to transition to writing, because you're, like you said, you were used to writing these reports, so it was not a big deal for you to just start jotting some storyline down and start putting some characters in motion, so to
Right.
speak. But I mean, but truly that is the case, is, everything's a narrative when you're writing for a police report or investigation report or something like that, because you're trying to tell the story to somebody else about what you did and what happened, so that they can make their own determination about what's next for that person or that situation. So that
Right.
really makes sense, but I hadn't really thought about it like that.
Yeah.
But so now maybe you're going to encourage some other police officers or agents or someone to write their own story, because they're used to putting it on paper anyway, or on the computer at any point.
Yeah, absolutely. I would encourage anyone to write their own story, regardless if you're a police officer or whatever your profession is, regardless of what you want to write about. But yeah, you're right. When you're writing those reports, you're being very succinct. At this time, this happened. You're not putting any emotion into it. You're not putting your own opinion into it. But if you take that basic skill set and then go back and add some color to it, go back and add your emotion to it. What does it sound like? What does it feel like? What does it smell like? What do other people around think about what's happening at that moment? And you have the basic skeleton for your story. So now you have to fluff it up just a little bit, make it a little bit more dramatic than you normally would in a police report. And I think that's a really good place to start.
Definitely. So how would you say your time in the service has benefited you? I mean, beside the fact that you are now have these great stories that you can share to some degree with your audience, but how is it, like the things you learned in the military and the things you learned in the Air Force, and then as a federal agent and those kinds of things, how has it shaped your path now where you are?
Yeah, again, joining the Air Force was the best decision I ever made. And I guess other people could say the same thing about whatever service they join. For me, I joined at 18. I grew up, became a man in the Air Force, and living up to a certain standard. Performing at a certain standard. Everything that you do, it has to be of quality. Even now, I've been retired for several years, but I hate being late. If I say I'm going to be someplace at a certain time, I get a bit anxious. If I'm running 5-10 minutes late, it's just something I can't shake. I don't know why, but I just hate being late. Whenever I drive onto an Air Force base, it always feels like I'm at home. Even though I was ready to retire, don't get me wrong, I was ready to hang it up, but it just feels at home. It just feels like everything makes sense. And sometimes out in the civilian world, sometimes the pay could be a little better, but things don't always make sense. But
Yeah.
being in the Air Force and in the military, it feels good to know that what you're doing makes a difference. As people say, you're part of something bigger, even though you may be doing something small, but overall you're affecting the mission, and that mission affects lives and political decisions all around the world.
Very true. So do you find you miss the military, or are you good? I mean, like you're in a good spot, and you by writing the stories it kind of brings you back into that space, or do you find that you miss some components of being in the service?
I do miss some things about it, a lot of things, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But I'm happy, to be able to move on from it and to be able to write about it and reminisce, tell some stories, and I'm looking forward to whatever's coming next.
So I know most people that have spoken to, the thing they miss the most is the community, like the sense of belonging, like everyone understands basically what you've been through, what
Yeah,
you've been doing, and has your back. And so really you feel you miss that
yeah,
connectedness
yeah.
of being military brethren. So is that what you miss too, or do you miss like being part of that special group that's
I,
going and doing counterintelligence or that's doing investigation work? What
I,
what's your biggest?
I do. I miss, being around people with that shared experience, that shared background, that shared training,
Yeah.
people who are like-minded. We all speak the same language. We all speak the same jargon. We may all be wearing the same uniform. It just, it evens out the playing field, you know,
Mhm.
and nobody's going to have an easy time, in the military. And we all understand that.
Yeah.
But, there are people that I met in the Air Force that had my back then that still have my back now. And I hope they feel the same way.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I retired in 2024, and I miss it. And if they ask me to go back tomorrow, I'll be like, okay, where am I going? Sign me up. Let's go. So I get it, and and I would say that the biggest takeaway that I have is like-minded people that want to serve.
Mhm.
Because that's really what it is. It's about service, and it's about people that see the greater good and know that they're affecting the greater good. So
Right.
I think, what you're saying basically is the same thing as, you've got a shared mission and we all have a part, no matter how small or big it is, or where we're doing that part of the work. It's all relevant and all important.
Right. Right.
So how are you going to roll out your book? Are you doing book signings or what are you doing?
Well, right now, I just finished getting everything loaded. I had a little hiccup with the book cover, but it's done now. I'm doing the final review on the audiobook. So everything is being uploaded into Amazon. I'm doing the last checks, on the author copies. And now I'm going on my tour. I'm speaking to wonderful podcast hosts like yourself, trying to get the word out about the Shadow One series and the new book that's coming out. I'm hoping to do some book signings in the future. But as right now, I'm just trying to build up some energy and build up, some excitement that, this book is out. And normally when you hear stories about the Air Force or you see the Air Force in the movies, you see fighter pilots,
True.
I wanted to be able to tell a story about the enlisted side of the Air Force. And I wanted to be able to tell a story about a part of the Air Force that most people don't know anything about, or they know very little, OSI. So when I can show the enlisted agents in OSI, the work that they do and how they manage the stresses in their everyday life while managing the stresses of what happens at work. Because when the doorbell rings and the phone rings, you never know what's going to happen when you pick it up. It could be something that's going to change your life. You could be, picking up your bags, heading overseas for the next, 6 months, or you could be responding to a murder case on the other side of the base. So you never know what's going to happen, and I want to be able to bring people into that world.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued by that. I always wanted to do law enforcement on some some degree, I always thought I would want to. And so when I joined the military, I thought I wanted to be military police. And so I looked for a unit that had openings, and I joined in 1991, and all the MPs in my area were deployed overseas, and they weren't backfilling anybody. So the closest I could get was legal specialist. So I took it in a civil affairs unit. So that's what I did. That was as close to the legal end of it that I could get at the time that I joined. So I understand the push and the desire and the intrigue around, serving in a law enforcement capacity or in an agent capacity, because there is a lot of unknowns, and that makes it kind of exciting.
Yeah. Like I said, I was drawn to law enforcement early, but I thought, again, it would be maybe FBI, Secret Service. But I think OSI has the best mission in the OSI in the Air Force. I think it has the best mission in the entire military, whether it's criminal investigations, counterintelligence, or counter espionage, or you could be a tech agent installing, hidden cameras and body wires, tapping into electrical systems, and or you could be a cyber security agent, or you could be someone who's done. You could be a polygrapher. You could specialize in counterintelligence, counterterrorism. There's so many different avenues for you to succeed in OSI if that's what you want to do.
Wow, I had no idea they had so many different areas that you could specialize or focus in.
So OSI, like NCIS, you can do criminal investigations and counterintelligence. Versus in the Army, CID only does criminal investigations, and then they have military intelligence that does the CI work. But in OSI and NCIS, you could do either.
Wow, it sounds like you guys got the best of both worlds when you're going to that, because I'm Army, so I understand, military intelligence or versus CID, and you don't get to mix, and so it's cool that you get a chance to work in both areas under your umbrella of special investigations. So that's really neat. Yeah,
it was. And sometimes it could be a little confusing. In the morning you're working a crime case, in the afternoon you may be working, or assisting on a counterintelligence job. But one team, one fight, we're all in this together. And so when you can specialize in one area or another, it makes it just a little bit easier.
Yeah, I can only imagine. But like you said, it would be hard to travel to 20 countries and then keep track of where in the world you are. Did you have to have special language training, or did you bring an interpreter, or how did that work?
When I was on that assignment, AFSOC did give us a few months of specialized language training, depending on where we were scheduled to go for whatever mission, if there was enough advanced notification where we were going.
So are you good at other languages? How many can you speak?
I am not. I'm not going to say I'm proficient in any. I did deploy to South America a few times where I could survive using my Spanish. I was trained for a few months in Arabic, but right after that, I forgot most of it. So I'm just sticking to English these days.
I understand that. Even if you study it for a long time, and if you don't use it, it tends to, like the skill, it's muscle memory. It's not like riding a bike. It's not like you can get it right back, but it'd take a little bit of time to like re-engage with the language and remember the conjugation and the verbs and all that.
Right.
I have been studying Spanish for a long, long time, and ask me if I'm fluent. No, I'm not.
Really?
I keep trying, but I was like, I'm still not good. I can understand something if somebody says something to me. I pretty much understand.
Better than you think you are.
So if you had a piece of advice for somebody writing or somebody wanting to join the Air Force or be an agent, what would you say to them? What advice would you give to them?
I would tell them to follow their heart. A lot of people, some people even have the best intention, will kind of steer you away from where you want to be.
True.
When I joined the Air Force, some people who had, the best intentions for me, Air Force for 10 years, and I told a few people that I was looking at joining OSI. Some of my best friends, told me that's not the move that you want to make. because of the reputation that they thought OSI had. From what they understood as far as just being undercover, just catching people doing bad things. That's all they knew about OSI, and they didn't see the part where OSI is actually saving lives and carrying out a war fighting mission. And so, me sticking to what was driving me from the inside. That's my advice. Find out what motivates you, what makes your heart beat a little bit faster, and follow that.
That's great advice. That really is. Because if you have it on your heart to do something, but someone's telling you, oh, that's really hard, or, you won't really enjoy it after some time, like, don't do that. You really, like you said, you really shouldn't listen to that. You really should go with your gut, and what you really feel in your heart of hearts is your path, because not everybody's path is the same.
That's true. I sometimes I wonder what would I be had I just listened to other people. Mm-hmm. And I think I would be somewhere regretting not following my own path. And so, win or lose, figure out, where you want to be and give it your best effort. And don't settle for second place. Don't put so much effort in having a fallback plan. It's okay to have a fallback plan, but if you put so much effort in the fallback plan, that means you're taking away from your priority.
Definitely. If you, like you say, if you focus more on, okay, this is my plan B, then you do your plan A, then your plan A probably isn't getting off the ground. So you really got to focus your effort, like you say, going forward, and not so much looking back, but looking forward. Because plan B, I think, is a looking back type option versus a looking forward type option.
Right. And you're showing that you're doubting your own self.
Yes, exactly. That's true. That's very true. So I was going to ask you too, writing books. How did you get a publishing deal? How did you find where to send your book, and who edited it, and who did all of that work for you? And how did you figure out where to do that?
So that was hard. That was the hardest part. And so I started sending out, I didn't know how it worked to begin with. I didn't realize that I just couldn't contact a publishing company, that I had to have an agent to do that. And so I started sending out query letters to all these agents, and most of them didn't even respond. And the ones that did respond back would send me a nasty email about why they weren't, even interested in my genre of book. And so I decided I don't need them. I'm just going to publish it myself. And so that was a lot of work trying to figure out how to do that. After I had written the book, the first book was a little bit more difficult than the second, because everything that I did was the wrong thing to do when publishing a book. So I found a fantastic editor, though. Her name is Tia Ross. And, when she got my manuscript from the first book, and looking at the way that she edited it, and helped me think of better ways to write. The story is still the same, but a better way to express myself. Mm-hmm. And the lessons I learned just from reviewing those edits, I applied in the second book. And even still, the edits that I got back from the second book, it makes the book even better. I think it went from being really good to being really great, but I'm a little biased because I wrote it. But, I'm really grateful for her. And, self-publishing, if you can get a publishing deal, that's fantastic, by all means. But if you can't, or if you're just tired of begging people to even give you a chance, or begging people to read your email, that's an opportunity for you to just learn how to do it yourself and get it done.
Yeah. And so that's what you did. You figured out how to do the publishing yourself, and then you got it onto Amazon. Is it hard to make that connection to Amazon to try to sell your book?
No, actually, once I learned how to upload everything on Amazon, and just, watching some other videos of how people did it and their experience, it really wasn't that hard. And there are other distributors such as Ingram Spark, where you can get your books in other libraries, or people, other distributors can buy your book bulk. And it's kind of fascinating now when I go on to Google, and I just, type in the name of my book, and I see all the different stores and all the different countries where my book is available. Just because I put it on Amazon and Ingram Spark, it's available around the world. And so I would encourage anybody, if this is what you're interested in doing, go for it.
That's awesome. I'm glad you were able to do that and get your book out there, even though people weren't giving you, they weren't really looking at your book or looking at your emails. You decided to just figure it out and just keep working at it till you got it done. And so I think that's another thing that the military taught you is resilience. Like,
Right.
don't take no for an answer. You keep trying until you figure out how to go forward, because, in the military, it's like, okay, if you can't go through them, you go around them, or if you have to go under them, you do that, but you figure a way forward, no matter what that takes. So I think that really taught you that lesson in resilience and fortitude to just, okay, well, we're just going to figure it out.
Absolutely. No matter what, the mission has to get accomplished.
Right, exactly. So we've got about 5 minutes left. Is there anything else you want to put out, anywhere else you're going to be, or your books, or you've got a new one that's going to be following? And is there going to be a trilogy to this Shadow and the Raven series?
Well, Shadow One was originally planned as a trilogy. I do have the outline written for the third book. I was planning on, doing my job this year and just promoting the second book, because when I wrote the first book, I did a little bit of promotion, but I was so excited about writing that I came right back and wrote the second book. So I'm going to, take my time this year to promote the book, promote the series, and probably at the end of the year, early next year, I'll start writing the third book. It doesn't have a title yet, but it should be the end of the trilogy. You never know.
Wow. So if you come to Texas and you come to Barnes and Noble or somewhere like that, let me know, because I would love to come out and meet you and support you. And then we can do a spot kind of, showcasing you as the author and your work, and, generate some excitement that way, I hope.
Thank you. That would be awesome.
That would be really good. So I am so excited that you came on tonight, and I'm so excited to get the book when it is available for release, because I will be buying it. I will be one of the first ones waiting in line for it to go live so I can order it. And I'm looking forward to reading Shadow One, just so I can get ready for Raven. So thank you so much for agreeing to be on tonight, and thank you for your service, and thank you for sharing your stories with us.
Thank you, Terry. I had a great time, and thank you for your service as well.
Oh, thank you. Well, this is Tracer Round signing off. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right.
Life is like a duck. Tough times don't last, but tough people do. Here at Military Broadcast Radio, we're teaming up with our friends at Die Tired, the veteran-friendly music band spreading strength, resilience, and mental health awareness, one shirt at a time.
And check this out. Their brand new shirts feature broadcast beaker right on the breast pocket. A reminder that you can weather the storm, and you're never alone.
Shirts are only $25, and proceeds support giving veterans a voice. MBR's mission to teach veterans how to podcast and videocast. Because when our vets are talking, they're not overthinking. They're not second-guessing. Together, we stop the 22 stigma. Grab your shirt today at mbradio.us and hit the shop. Or go directly to toramerch.printavo.com/merch/dietiredband. That's toramerch.printavo.com/merch/dietiredband.
Suit up, stand strong.
Remember, we're unduckable together.
You're built tougher than the storm. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.